Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Ipswich here on the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only podcast where you can get your daily Ipswich Town fix. Well, that was an eventful game, wasn't it? My name is Tom, as I should say. Sorry guys. I'm on my own today for today's episode. The lads were, I think, watching the game last night and were unfortunately able to join me for tonight's recap. Recording this almost an hour or so after kickoff. Yeah, I mean, going to Old Trafford these days, it's strange to say, isn't it, that it's one of those grounds where, for any club really in the top flight and maybe your top few clubs in the Championship, it's a place where you could conceivably get a result, and it's not that intimidating ground that it was 10 or so plus years ago. And that was very much the case going into last night's game. I think looking at our previews of the crossover and then mine and James' one as well, we were all quite confident going into that. You've seen United's home form this season. It's been very poor. So there was reason to be confident, and we've been much better away from home than we have been. Much better away from home than we have been at Portland Road, that is for sure. 3-2 it finished to Manchester United, though, with set pieces being our biggest downfall. We'll have a tactics breakdown on Friday's show as well to go through the nitty-gritty of what was a very entertaining game for the neutral, I'm certain, but for the Town perspective, with Wolves losing the night before, it was very much an opportunity missed. But nonetheless, there are positives to take from the result, which I will very much get into. It's not going to be a completely negative affair on today's show, but obviously there will be areas in which I will have to unfortunately touch upon. With the result, we'll look at the starting lineup from the game with a 4-2-3-1 returning. I think it's always a question, isn't it, going into each Town game now, is whether it's going to be a 5 at the back or 4. And we saw a 4 at the back return here with a few other players coming to the starting 11. So just going from the goalkeeper up top, we had Alex Palmer in goal, who is very much clearly our number one goalkeeper now. Even with injuries, I'm very certain he will be starting that position. Centre-back pairing of Dara O'Shea and Jacob Greaves. Leif Davis at left-back, and a returning Axel Tuanzebe after his suspension against Villa against his former club on the right. Centre-mid pairing of Jens Kiuste, and returning to the side our captain Sam Morsey. Then a front three behind the striker of Jack Clark on the left, Amari Hutchinson in the middle, Jaden Philogene on the right, and then, as I said, Liam Delap up top leading the line. I think on paper it's a great formation. It's very attacking minded. I think that front three now of Clark, Hutchinson and Philogene, I think on paper maybe is our best this season. I mean, you guys I'm sure maybe have a differing opinion on certain players. There's reason to believe Broadhead or a player like Schmoditz could come into that three without in a very conceivable way, and given their form throughout the season compared to, you could argue, any of those three who did start, they might get in their merit, to be fair. But that was the formation and the players we had going into the game. And yeah, let's just get straight into it, shall we? Opening 3 minutes or so, we got our quickest goal of the season with a calamity of errors from United's goalkeeper and their new right winger as well. I mean, we've seen Onana make plenty of mistakes since he's been at Old Trafford. Very much does not look like the keeper they expected in terms of how great he was for Inter Milan before coming to Old Trafford. But we capitalised on it. Jaden Philogene getting his first goal, his first Premier League goal, I should say, for the club. It was a very easy tap-in, but you have to take advantage of those. And from then on, it was, thinking we could probably hold on to a result, considering how poor United have been at home this season. I think the commentary team said that they've only managed to come back from behind at home, I think 3 times, maybe I think against the season. Obviously, they had that comeback against Southampton earlier this season, so they've shown they can do that against sides like us and where we are in the table. So obviously with us and with the amount of goals we've conceded after from winning positions, we very much knew that the game was not said and done. And then the game moved on about 50 minutes or so, and United then did manage to claw 2 back to take the lead. Both goals as well. I mean, like I said, the set pieces for us were very much our downfall, and I'll touch on that in the latter stages of the show, and I'm sure we will on Tactics Friday as well. But 2 goals really not from open play. I mean, if you want to take some positives from the game, we didn't concede from open play. They were all set pieces from United's perspective. Firstly, from a free kick from Fernandes on the left wing. That wasn't dealt with poorly, and Sam Morsey got the last touch, and unfortunately, and it kind of rocketed into the corner. And then they took the lead from a corner with a De Ligt header at the near post as well. His first goal, I think, at Old Trafford as well. I think he did score away from home earlier in the season against Southampton, but this was his first goal at Old Trafford, which he celebrated tremendously. I think for any player, regardless of how you view Manchester United these days, scoring at Old Trafford still was a big, big moment. And then, 2-1 down, United is still a poor side, and I was still relatively confident going into the game. And then got even more confident after Manchester United went down to 10 men after Dorgu got sent off for what was an awful challenge on Omari Hutchinson. Omari Hutchinson was getting booed from United fans after the game, which is ridiculous after the challenge, which is ridiculous considering how awful that challenge from Dorgu was. Referee went to VAR and quite rightly gave the straight red for that. And really from then on, 10 men, it's a position we've not been in really at all this season for the majority of our games, and that is really being on the front foot and controlling possession, controlling the pace of the game, and really dictating how the game could go. And from then on, it really did kind of seem like, okay, if we can equalise here, then this game is ours to potentially grab a result. And my mind kind of cast it back to when we went down to 10 men before the stroke of half-time at Villa Park a few weeks ago, and we didn't concede them, which I think was really important, because if you concede before the stroke of half-time with 10 men, having just gone down to 10 men, it can be really difficult to mentally come back in the second. And the fact that we scored just before the end of the first half, I really was positive going into the second half, because United would have probably been quite happy taking a lead in 10 men. They'd have been able to readjust a lot more, and then it would have been a lot harder for us in the second. But a really strange goal again. I think I said to Richard, James and Rob in our podcast chat during the match that maybe one of the strangest braces I've ever seen of 2 goals scored from a player, with Philigine's odd opener, and then a goal, very well created from him, cutting into the left side, a ball that was very much intended to be a cross. Delap tried to get at the end of it, but in him doing that, kind of got in Onana's way, and the ball was able to trickle in to the goal. Very much reminded me, unfortunately, of the goal we conceded at Brentford in the latter stage of the game earlier in the season. But going to the second half, it was 2-2. Considering how we are playing, and with United down to 10 men, you'd have liked to think we might be able to capitalise that in a second. But that was not to be the case, which I will very much get into in the next part of the show.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back here on the second part of today's podcast, looking back at Town's unfortunate 3-2 defeat at Old Trafford last night. Second part of the show, let's go for the second half, shall we? And it started as poorly as it possibly could. I said to the guys again, start of the second half, that this is a great chance to get something United. The commentary team was saying it, and the analysis was saying it in between both halves, and you really thought it could have been our moment. But set pieces did us again, and a brilliant ball in from Bruno Fernandes, who really, I liken him right now with how Man United are playing to Wolves right now, where if Wolves did not have Mateus Cunha, where the heck would they be? And you could say the same for Manchester United. I'm not necessarily saying they would have been in a relegation battle, but I mean, they're 15th in the table. Where would they be without him? I can't even imagine, to be honest. And he really, really was the difference maker for them in this game. But a fantastic ball. And Maguire just snuck in. It's experienced player from his perspective, kind of snuck behind, Philogene, and was able to get a really, really good goal. Put United up 3-2. Excuse me. And, I think start the half, conceding that early, yes, it was demoralising. But, we knew we had to go into the second half and get a third goal regardless. Obviously, we would have liked to have got that third goal to take the lead, but it was not the case. And there was plenty of time with, the way Man United were playing and the fact that they had one less player than us. 3-2 down at that point in the game with plenty of time left. I was still relatively positive. We could have maybe gone on to get all 3 points, but we didn't. And the way the game continued from then on, it was constant pressure from us. As I said, it's really not a position we've been in all season where it's been attack. And one of the things I sort of noticed as the game went on, when we were trying to get an equaliser as the minutes ticked down, was our real lack of creativity. People say you should just, at this point in the game, just get the ball into the box. And there were aspects of that when we were passing it on the edge. And there were occasions when I was thinking, just get it in there, because you never know. United's defence is very flaky, so it does stand to reason that it's a conceivable thing just to loft it in there and hope for the best. And Delap's a great player to have in the middle of the box. Then he potentially could have gotten the end of it and equalised for us. But the fact that the balls weren't played into the middle, into the box, were partly due to the lack of creativity. You've got Leif Davis, who, has a good crossing, but for some reason was just happy to sort of go across the face. The more he does that, the more he's going to have to potentially use his right foot, which is not his strong foot. On the right side, we had a similar issue where it was a right back sort of Twanzebe having to be a more attacking minded player, which really isn't his strong suit. And so the balls he tried to put in, or any sort of creativity he tried to do, just wasn't the quality that we needed. And then in the middle of the park, I think Hutchinson just as a 10, it doesn't work in this scenario. And especially when United have got, all 9 outfield players back, he had very limited options. And Jack Clark, throughout the game in the first and the second, some decent runs from him, but that style of play doesn't work when your opponent's entire team is on the back foot and they're kind of trying to suppress every movement you have. So Delap wasn't really able to get anything to him in the second half. There was a brief moment, I think it was a pass from Clark to Custe, which got round the back of the right side of United's defence, which he put a fantastic ball across the face. Delap couldn't really get to it, and then Philogene, unfortunately, just trickled out of his foot. But really, apart from that, and a shot from Philogene that Onana kind of comfortably saved on his near post near the latter stage of the game, that was it, really, wasn't it? And I think that's the big issue for me, really, was the fact that we had very little creativity in a game when we're on the front foot the entire way. And it was just really disappointing to see, to be honest. Just before we go to the next part of the show, we'll just go through the subs who came on as well, because, as I said, this is a game where, majority of the season we've had to just, if we do have a lead, which has been a rarity, but if we do have a lead, or if we're drawing a game, we very much bring, quite rightly, defensive-minded substitution. But this was the case where we did not do that, where we saw Jack Taylor come on, Sammy Schmodic, George Hurst, Nathan Broadhead, and Ben Johnson, who can be a bit more advancing as well. One of the few times, I think, that we have seen George Hurst and Liam Delap on the pitch at the same time, which, I was very happy to see, because it was like a substitution that we should be making in terms of trying to get a equaliser. But I think with the amount of players that United had pinned back, it was really, really hard to do so. Again, it's just constant pressure, and you would have thought something would have going to tell from it, but it really, really didn't. And it's just such a shame to see, unfortunately. I tell you what, that was, I think going at that point in the game, nothing really came from it at the end, did it, guys? So I'm going to take our final break here, and then when we come back, I'll just sort of go through my final thoughts in the game and where it leaves us for the rest of the season.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network.
And we're back here on the final part of today's show, looking back at Town's 3-2 defeat at Old Trafford. So, another defeat, unfortunately. I think this one is very, very sour, isn't it? Like I said at the top of the show, there are positives to take from a result like this, where you can potentially think, I know United aren't where they used to be as a club, but going to Old Trafford is still conceivably a place where it's not easy to play. And the fact that we kind of held our own and were the better side throughout the game is a good thing to take away from it. But the fact that Wolves dropped points the night before, and the fact that United went down to 10 men and we were on the front for the entire game, this is a really, really big missed opportunity. And I said ahead of the game the other day that, with being 5 points behind, we don't want that gap to extend. And it hasn't, which I guess is one of the few positives we can take from these midweek results here before we go into the FA Cup this weekend. But I think considering what happened on the pitch with United sending off, it's a massive missed opportunity. I think even cutting the gap to 4, you would have taken it as the game went on, and it's just a real shame, unfortunately. I'm still positive. We've still got to play Wolves. I keep saying it. I know if we win that game, and it's the current gap right now, we will be 2 behind them, but they will slip up. We just have to make sure we can find a way in the last few remaining games. And, I think the performances from certain individuals, there's aspects which I'm starting to get a bit more pleased from. One player who I've been really, really impressive in the last month, I'd say, for me, again, it's been slim pickings in February for sure, but for me, our player of the month, for me, is Jack Clark. Not necessarily from a goal contribution perspective, because really there hasn't been that many from anyone, has there? But I think we're finally seeing him gel into the team more, be a lot more confident. There's a few runs he had in the game, especially in the first half, that he was kind of instigating the attack, and also defensively, I think he's really started to find his feet. And this is kind of expected from a player like him. He's still a relatively youngish player, and he's coming to a new club, a new league. It was always going to be difficult, and there's players who are in a similar position to him who have hit the ground running a lot more. But that's just, I guess, based on the individual. And I think we are starting to see the player we bought. Obviously, the numbers aren't there to back that up, but there's aspects of his game that are relatively improving. So I'm really happy about that. But it's few and far between, I guess, isn't it? But that was an aspect of the game which I was really happy about to see. I think it was good also to see more decent run from Kayuste as well. He's, been a 60-minute player, we've said many times this season. And the fact that he stayed on instead of Morsey for the first substitution kind of shows where his fitness level is at. And he was able to provide a bit more. And he also got that assist. And one of the few chances we created in the second half, he was at the end of it and looks really positive there. And again, I thought Twanzebe was great. We've waxed lyrical about him a lot this season. And he was one of our best players, I think, in that stage of the game where defensively there wasn't much to go from, but he always put in a good performance, I thought. Yeah, I'm guys a bit lost for words, unfortunately, but individuals-wise, there are ones to look at. I think one of the key battles from the game, and I think from a neutral's perspective, it was good to see, was that of the battle between Liam Delap and Harry Maguire. Excuse me, a very much classic sort of centre-back striker sort of battle in that part of the field. You saw a few moments in the game where they both sort of gave each other high fives and handshakes because they're both very physical players. And I think Maguire, he's not known for his pace, and obviously Delap is, but he wasn't able to get past Maguire that much. And they had a real battle. And, most likely that is going to be a battle we're going to see at St George's Park for England training sessions in the coming months and years, I'm certain. But that was really, really good to see. Delap, again, didn't get his goal, but was able to be a bit of a nuisance, especially in the first half. He does flag off a bit, though, as the game goes on. I don't know if it's because we've become a bit more desperate as we try to find a goal, but the outlets that are available to him become much more fewer as the game goes on. In the first half, he always looks so explosive. I think that initial burst of pace that he has at the start of the game just shocks teams and stuns teams. He's able to really get a chance of, which he almost did at the start of the game. Very similar to the first few minutes at Spurs, where he almost scored after bursting past Archie Gray. And it's the same at the opening part of the game here. Just unfortunately wasn't able to find the back of the net. Where do we go from here? As I said, we're 5 points behind. We've still got to play Wolves, as I said. And as form at home's not been great this season, but we've still got to take our chances when that comes. And these past 2 years have been amazing, and we still have a chance. I think that's the most important thing. And there's a pride we can take, I think, from the fact that we've not given up. You look at certain way teams play. I think Southampton are down and out. Leicester, yes, we are on the same amount of points as them, but the style of play and the relationship the fans have with the club right now, it's night and day. And that's something we can really be proud of. The fact that we've stuck together as a fan base, I think, both on and off the pitch this season has been really, really good to see. And the quality of football's been there. It's just there's been moments when we just haven't been able to capitalise. And it's been a real shame. But hopefully we can turn it around. I think just one more thing to touch on. I didn't want to go into it too much, which, I think was the main kind of talking point on the pitch, really, wasn't it? But have to really look at set pieces defensively for us. Not just the ones we conceded, but there were, in the latter stage of the game, when United got a few set pieces to try and hold onto their lead, and hold onto the lead they did, unfortunately. We're just looking complete disarray, whether it's from a corner or a free kick sort of taken near the halfway line and it's swung into the box. We just look all over the place. There was one when United were 3-2 up and De Ligt almost got on the end of it and Greaves just sort of swazzed it away and it did go out for a corner. And I just wasn't confident in any of those defensive situations. And there was good reason to be, because most set pieces we had against us in the game ended up going in our own net. And I don't think you could really blame it on the goalkeeper. They were just unfortunate positionings, and United got on the end of it and we didn't. And, I think conceding so early at the start of the second, it was kind of we knew we had to score a third regardless, but I think it was kind of a nail in the coffin moment when that was scored so early, so demoralising when we really thought we could have gone and got something from the game. But unfortunately, we did not. I think that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Like I said, I'm on my own today. You can only talk to the wall so much, can't you? But I hope you enjoyed this, and it's a brief recap on the game, but we'll go into it in more detail on tomorrow's show with the tactics one, and either I'll be on this one, or two of the other lads will be here to take us through it before we look ahead also to Monday's game next week against Forest in the Cup, which, it's not a league game, and hopefully we can put league form out the window and get a result as we look to progress in the FA Cup. But that is going to do it for today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope we can sort of soldier on as the season goes on. Positive results are going to come, even if they are few and far between, and we'll enjoy this Premier League ride for as long as we shall be on it. Hopefully it can be longer than it looks like it will be for the time being. But that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining, guys. If you want to head to our socials and give us a like and a follow and all that sort of stuff, give the pod a nice review as well on Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. We really do appreciate that, and it helps us out tremendously. But that's going to do it. That's going to do it for now, and we'll see you next time.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.